Anna found it difficult to just accept hugs from her friends. Now, if that sounds weird, it's because of the trauma that Anna experienced in the past. You see, the way her family was, there was such a lack of boundaries, and there were so many times that she was violated as an individual, and there were so many times that her boundaries were not respected, and she went through trauma, and she went through molestation, and so really just a person touching her is triggering to her. And there's been times that a person has touched her innocently, but it's triggered a flashback for Anna. So as a result, she's let people know she doesn't like to be touched. But is there anything that can be done for her flashbacks? Because when they come on, they're very intense and they rob her of the joy of the moment. They bring her right back to that place where she's in fight, flight, freeze. And so maybe you've experienced flashbacks as well, whether they're mental flashbacks or emotional flashbacks. They're a common symptom of complex trauma. And so flashbacks are a sudden, intense re-experiencing of a past event, a sudden, intense re-experiencing of a past event. So especially when we've been through something that was traumatic, i.e. violating in some way, then this can cause us to have flashbacks. It can feel like you're back in the traumatic event when you have that flashback, even though you're not. You can experience intense emotions, intense physical sensations. It can be brought on by auditory stimuli, visual stimuli, something you smell. So how do we stop these? How do we get out of intense flashbacks? How do we end flashbacks for ourselves? Brian dealt with nightmares. It wasn't so much that he was having flashbacks in his day-to-day life, but he was generally a pretty anxious person. And so when he would go to sleep at night, it was very common for Brian to have some scenario where he was in like a terroristic situation and he had to run away from a predator, or he was hiding in a building somewhere. He'd have these dreams that were just frightening, and it was always like he was having nightmares. So how do we stop a nightmare? Nightmare is a dream that is scary. So how do we end nightmares? Is it possible? Well, I'm happy to share with you that many have been able to end flashbacks and diminish their nightmares. In fact, there are many who are living without nightmares at all. There are many right now who have completely eliminated their flashbacks. And for some, it can be easier than others, but it is entirely possible to end your flashbacks. And I'm going to show you some techniques that you can use today, that you can put into your life to make sure you're not having flashbacks. And also it would be a nice bonus to not have nightmares anymore, right? So I'm also going to share with you how you can eliminate this aspect of life, because we don't have to live a life where we're terrorized by nightmares. They can be so much and so intense that you're afraid to go to sleep at night. So in both Anna and Brian's case, they had to learn how to process their trauma. So what does that mean in terms of processing your trauma? You'll hear people use terms like processing, you got to do the work. But what does that really all come down to? Well, typically with psychiatric trauma, we're dealing with past events, right? So we do have anxiety about the future, but it's all based on something we've experienced in the past. So in order to reprocess trauma, we have to take that past event and put it through a new processing process, if you will. What does this mean, this word process? Well, to process something is to put something through a system that allows it to come out on the other side in a different manner, right? So that's why processed meats are typically considered to be bad because they're no longer in their natural state, and processed foods are considered to be bad because they're no longer in the natural state. So they took natural ingredients, but they put them in to a process that synthesized it. But processing can also be very good, right? Like If you put an application in to a job or to something that you want to be a part of, and they tell you that your application is being processed, that's a positive thing. So that means that someone is actually working on putting your application through the system so that it will come out on the other side, hopefully with good results. And so the original way we may have processed our trauma from the past may not have been adequate, or we may not have processed it at all. So if you were the type of person to develop a mindset such as, I can't handle this, then perhaps that's justified because maybe you were a child at the time of the original trauma. That is an inadequate processing. So let's say we were hurt, abused, assaulted. And at the time, we just basically concluded we can't handle it. So then what are we doing? Maybe distracting, putting it out of the mind, freezing up when it comes up. But that concept, I can't handle it, is not an adequate processing for the brain, right? So we have to understand the mind and the way that it works is designed to keep us safe. So if the mind has a memory of something that was very much traumatic and unsafe for you, but you have not processed it, but you've only told it, this is something that scares me, this is something I can't handle, the brain remains afraid of that. The brain remains traumatized around that. Specifically, I'm referring to a part of the mind, which is your subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is going to be a portion of the mind that you do not control deliberately. Does that make sense? Your subconscious mind is a portion of the mind that you don't control deliberately. Our mind is the operating system of the brain. It's the OS. So you have portions of that operating system that are available to your control, and that's your conscious self or your conscious mind. But you have portions that are not available to your control. So that's why when you have emotions, it feels like these emotions are out of control and you can't control them. When you have flashbacks, it feels like flashbacks are out of your control and you can't control them. Why? Because what's really bringing on the emotions? What's really bringing on the flashbacks? The subconscious mind. The trauma has affected the subconscious mind. Subconscious mind is protecting you by taking a snapshot of the sights, the sounds, the smells associated with that trauma, and then saying, if we ever see this again, we're going to give you a warning by dumping chemicals into your system. You're going to get shot with adrenaline as soon as we see anything like this. And so in your heart, when you get shot with adrenaline, your heart goes, doo, 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 doo. Oh my gosh, this is terrible, right? Why? Because it's associating something with those past triggers. And that's how a trigger is created. The subconscious is taking a snapshot of something that is potentially dangerous to you. It's basing what's going to be dangerous to you on those past events, on what's happened to you in the past. So yes, the flashbacks feel uncontrollable. That's true. The emotions feel uncontrollable. That's true, because it's on an automated system. You're not actively controlling it, but are you helpless to it? Are you merely a victim to your subconscious mind? The subconscious mind system is a system that was designed to work for you. It was designed to work for you, not the other way around. You are not to be a slave or victim or afraid of your own subconscious mind. Just process that for a moment. You're not to be a slave or victim to your subconscious mind. So when you have flashbacks or you have nightmares, if you don't like them, then you need to end them. You, the conscious person, need to stop the flashbacks and stop the nightmares. Well, how am I supposed to do that when the system's automated? I mean, it's not like I'm asking for these flashbacks to come on, Roman. So how am I supposed to stop that? Reprocessing is taking the old trauma and putting it through a system in which it will come out different. Does that make sense? As it remains in your subconscious right now, that trauma is not properly processed. So, as it remains, you will continue to be terrorized by all of the triggers associated. Does that make sense? It's just that simple. You haven't processed it. So it's going to continue be a sensitivity for you. It's going to continue. You're going to continue to be triggered around that. So what do you got to do? Reprocess. How do we do that? Well, remember the old way that you processed it was perhaps you're saying, I can't handle it, or I'm not going to deal with this, right? Or I'm just gonna ignore this, or I'm gonna distract myself. Or we may have processed it with maladaptive beliefs. This happened because I'm inadequate. That was my fault. So my child died because of me. My girlfriend left because I'm inadequate, right? So if we process things that way, we're going to continue to get the chemicals that go along with I'm inadequate and it's my fault. How do you think those chemicals are going to feel? Not enjoyable. Could it be time to reprocess some of these things? Yes. So how do we do that? We go back and we purposely call to mind the very thing that's causing us a flashback. So you're going to purposely think about the thing that causes you a flashback. The time to do it is when you're calm. Okay? So when you're calm, you're going to purposely call to mind the thing that's been terrorizing you, and you're going to reprocess by finding different ways to view it. Now, there are lots of different ways you can do this. For instance, you can, it'll be different in many cases, because when did this happen? Was it yesterday, or was it when you were a child, right? So for instance, if it was something that happened to you while you were a child, then you can ask yourself, if a child that I saw went through that same experience, and then that child asked me the questions that I have around this, such as, is this my fault? Or am I inadequate? How would I respond? The answer that you come up with in your logical, wise, calm mind will be a much superior, a more superior way of viewing the past trauma. The answer to the question, if a child asked me if they were inadequate, or told the same story to me, what would I say to the child? And what you would say to the child is a superior way of processing that old trauma. So then you adopt that new way of thinking around it, and you apply that trauma to yourself. Does that make sense? So you're going to adopt the new way of thinking about it and apply that new way of thinking about it to your trauma. Another question you can ask to help to reprocess this is, if a friend heard that this happened to a child that wasn't me, and the friend was talking to me about what happened, and the friend asked, hey, do you think it's the child's fault? Or, hey, do you think the child's inadequate? Or whatever the story is that you're telling yourself about the past trauma. What would you say? How would you respond to that friend? It's giving you a different way of viewing that past trauma. So now what's happening is you're reprocessing it. Does that make sense? You're putting it through a new way of processing. So I'll give you an example of how this could break down with your particular trauma. So let's say your trauma is around being assaulted. Someone came and then they hit you, they assaulted you in some way. Okay, so let's say you didn't process it when it happened. So now you continue to have flashbacks of this event, of this happening. You felt very powerless. You felt very helpless, right? And so, what are the conclusions that you've come to in this scenario? So let's say in this scenario, you've come to conclusions, I can never be safe. I can never be safe, or I can't trust anyone. Okay, so how do we reprocess this trauma to eliminate the flashbacks? Well, using the examples I used, we bring it into this third person scenario. If a child went through the same thing and told me, hey, Roman, I was just assaulted. Some bullies came, they hit me, they pushed me, and now I feel like I can never be safe. Is that true? What would I say to that child? So now as I start to think about it, I would say to the child, well, what you went through was very bad, and I wouldn't want anyone to go through that. But please understand please understand you are safe. You can be safe. You can be safe around people that you can trust. You can be safe when you're by yourself. You don't have to feel like you're always not safe. Also, it won't allow you to enjoy life if you're constantly feeling like you can't trust anyone and you're never safe. So I would like to reassure you, you can trust me, and you are safe around some people, but just not all the time. Now we've created a balanced way of viewing it. I'm not safe all the time, but I can be safe sometimes. And now what happens when we got the balanced way of viewing it? There's balanced chemicals. So now what I do is I decide to reprocess by taking that new way of looking at it. Oh, I get it. I'm not safe all the time, but I am safe some of the time. I can trust some people sometimes, even though I can't trust all people. So instead of having the extreme emotion, I can't trust anyone, I'm never safe, which gives me the extreme feeling, which keeps me in flashback mode, highly triggerable. I've now reprocessed it. My new way of thinking is sometimes I'm safe. And what starts to happen? My anxiety around the situation goes down. I become more balanced around this situation, around this trauma, right? Now I've started to reprocess it. Now I pretend I'm having a conversation with my friend. My friend says, hey, did you hear about what happened to that kid? Yeah, he got beat up, And my friend says, hey, what do you think? Do you think it's maybe that kid's fault? Or do you think it's true that that kid's never safe anywhere? What would I say to my friend? I say, well, I mean, that's extreme. Of course, he's still safe. I mean, just he has to be careful around certain areas of town, around certain people. He's got to avoid the bullies, but he's still safe. Okay, that's, again, the more balanced way of viewing it. So I adopt that and I tell that to myself. I'm still safe. I'm safe. I'm okay. Okay, so that's an example of reprocessing. Okay, that's an example of reprocessing, so that we have a new way of viewing the old triggers, the old flashback, right? And so whenever I'm having the flashback, I will need to ground myself in the present moment. And I can use lots of different grounding techniques. There's tapping. There's stop, be still, be thoughtful, be observant, be patient. I can name 5 things I can see, 4 things I can hear, 3 things I can touch, 2 things I can smell, 1 thing I can taste. Think about each thing as you name them. What was the purpose of this? Well, when you're in a panic attack or flashback, you're grounding yourself in the present moment. It's a part of the stop method. Be still, be thoughtful, be observant, be patient. I have to be observant to realize where I am in the stream of time. I am here. And this is important. You remind yourself, this is just a memory. Very important. This is just a memory. I'm okay. This is just a memory. It's okay. This will pass. These feelings will pass. This is just a memory. Notice my self-talk. It's reassuring. This is just a memory. I'm breathing. It's okay. The feelings will pass. Closing my eyes. I'm thinking. I'm blinking. I'm breathing. I'm being still, thoughtful, observant. I am here right now. I am in a house. It's okay. It's just a memory. As I do this, and the more passive I can keep my emotional state, the subconscious mind will automatically recategorize the triggers. Again, I'm having a flashback. I start grounding myself. Be still, be thoughtful, breathe, be observant. I'm here right now. Be patient. It's okay. It's okay. No big deal. You got this. As I continue to use these methods, subconscious mind says, oh, hey, he doesn't get scared around this trigger anymore. He keeps saying he's okay. So let's recategorize this trauma and these triggers as being out of service. They are no longer bad. He's still okay when he sees these things or hears these things. So now we're diffusing the triggers by reprocessing. How are we reprocessing in the moment? By grounding in the moment, by refusing to be taken away. As soon as I notice I'm in a flashback, hey, it's a memory, using my methods, using my tools, and I'm keeping myself right here. right now. Nope. Nope. I'm not doing it. When your brain starts to say, I think I'm having a panic attack, you don't go, oh my God, I think don't do that. You go, nope, I'm not doing that. Why? Your subconscious works for you. It is your assistant. So you are supposed to be commanding it. You can simply command the subconscious. You tell it what you want it to do. Nope. Stay calm. Breathe. Calm down. Stop. Be still. Be thoughtful. Be observant. Be patient. What happens after a moment or two? You're feeling the balance. Okay, right? Once you're rebalanced, when you're calm in another moment, the other side of the work that you're doing is purposely rebringing the flashback to your mind to process it in the way that we just used right there. So I want to give you guys a new tool that you can use for processing traumatic events, things that are violations, things that happen to you that you regret, that people make you feel stupid, they make you feel bad. Well, there's all kinds of violations, but a trauma is anything that violates ourselves or our boundaries or our values. So here's a tool you can use. Remember VIP. Okay, so V stands for victory. I stands for important. And P stands for powerful. Anything you go through, you must immediately go into, what is my victory story? How am I still important? Why am I still powerful? What is my victory story? How will I be victorious over this? Why am I still important? How am I still powerful? The reason why we maladapt is because some of us didn't learn VIP as children. You're supposed to learn this, by the way, from your parents as a child. So if you didn't learn it, you may have picked up some unhealthy habits, such as blaming yourself, viewing yourself as not powerful, believing that there is no way out and there is no way to succeed, which is victim mentality. And so when we adopt victim mentality, that's a learned helplessness at its core, which is the understanding or the belief that no matter what you do, it's not going to work. You're not going to win. You're going to lose every time. So you have to change that mindset. And that's the value of the V. The victory mindset, or telling yourself the victory story, is viewing every situation as, I'm going to win regardless. I might lose some battles, but I will not lose the war. I am going to win regardless. So bring in your victory story. Now, what is a victory story? The victory story is your vision of the future. It is your purpose. We've talked about that in the past, right? You see, we have to have an objective that we've given ourselves. We have to visualize ourselves successfully reaching that objective. For me personally, my victory story, well, we're actually living in my victory story right now. So about a year ago, or a little bit more than a year ago now, I had a vision that I was giving myself that I would be able to come on to Zoom and jump on and be able to talk to a room full of people. And I'd be able to do this twice a week. And I felt like when I get there, that would be a victory. That is my purpose. That is my objective. That's what I'm reaching toward. And now look, we're on Zoom. We got nearly 30 in the room. We got 60 here on TikTok. And how did this happen? Well, because I kept feeding myself this vision of the future. And I keep telling myself this victory story. I keep telling myself this victory story. And so the victory story becomes the driving force. So whenever I encountered a setback, which I had plenty, some of the largest setbacks I've had only happened in the last 600 days. I just tell myself, well, I'm still going to win. I'm still going to win. And then I visualize exactly how this is all going to play into my victory story in the end. Does that make sense? So a man comes, he hits me. And then I process it with VIP. And I tell myself, well, I'm still going to win in the end. So let me process now, how is this going to fit into my victory story? And I imagine him punching me and me overcoming it, right? And then me in the end still getting to my ultimate goal, which is to have my Zoom call where I jump on and there's a ton of people in the Zoom room. Right. So I had to make a new victory story now. So my next one is that I'm traveling the country and I'm speaking from city to city. That's my new victory story. So I just keep telling myself that that's what's going to happen. I keep visualizing it, what it would be like, what I'm wearing, what I'm doing there. This visualization is creating neural pathways in my brain so that my brain believes that that's reality. And this, what I'm living right now, is like, it's like in the way of the real reality. So what happens is my mind is constantly trying to find a way to get this stuff out of the way to get to the real reality, right? And so when I go to bed at night, what's happening? Am I having nightmares? No. My brain is still working on chipping away at the problem of why are we not traveling the country and speaking from city to city? It doesn't make sense to the brain because I keep feeding it this vision. And it's like, I like that vision. I like the feeling we feel in this vision. So the brain, the subconscious mind, is constantly working for me in trying to achieve that outcome, that goal, right? And what do they say on the internet? They're like, that's a law of manifestation, right? And they have this beautiful, it's the law of manifestation. No, it's the law of think about it and then make it happen. The same way you make a baked potato happen by thinking about it first. It all starts with your thoughts. This is science, okay? This isn't magic. Let's get real. It's science. Everything starts in the energy realm with your thoughts. Think it, then make it happen. When we think, I'm powerless, I can't, I won't, I lose, then what reality will you create for yourself? When we think in victory, I can, I will, I win, then what reality will you create for yourself? Let's talk about the I in this VIP. It's very important that we feel important. I don't make the rules, I just report them. So please understand, I don't know why we're built this way. We're just built this way. As humans, we must feel important. All humans have this program. All humans must feel important. So stop trying to go through life telling yourself that you're not important, that you're useless, replaceable, worthless, nobody likes you, nobody wants you, you're not lovable, you're not likable. All that negative self-talk chips away at your self-esteem, your self-worth, and your well-being. It makes you, again, feel helpless and worthless and useless. And pretty soon you start to feel like you don't even know why you're here and you have no purpose, and you know where all this leads. Not to any place good. It's destructive. So understand that it is important for you to feel important. Every human must feel important. Most of us don't need to be the president of the United States or the CEO of a company, but we just want to know that the people that we care about us. We want to feel important. Remind yourself of whose job it is to validate you. Think about it. Whose job is it to validate you? Every time I ask a client in session, and I ask this question a lot, I say, ideally, how often would a father validate his daughter or his son? And they always answer the same way. They say, after they think about it, they say every day, all the time, as much as possible. Isn't that something? We know inherently, I don't know where we learned it from, especially as survivors that didn't have fathers that did that. But we just know that a father needs to be validating a child constantly, incessantly. But here's the thing. Even if you grew up in a family where you're being validated by the father constantly, incessantly, well, when you become 18, 19, 20, you're going to move out. Who validates you then? When your parents are no longer there, they don't live with you, or they've passed, who's supposed to be the one to keep validating you? What's the answer to the question? Do you know? That's right. It's supposed to be yourself. Right? And you knew that inherently too, didn't you? It's not that we're supposed to grow up and then find a mate to validate us. That's not what we're supposed to do, is it? The whole benefit of the parents validating us as children is that our subconscious mind then gets trained to view ourselves as important, as valid. And then we validate ourselves from then on moving forward. That's the value of being validated by the father and the mother. And so you have to validate yourself, whether you grew up in a household like that or you grew up without that validation. It is now your responsibility to validate yourself. How often? Every day, all the time, incessantly validating yourself. That's the I in this VIP equation. You have to be reminding yourself that you're important. You're still important. So no matter what you went through, again, let's pretend I was assaulted. I was assaulted. Someone came, they slapped me as insulting, right? I have to remind myself I'm still important. I'm still valid. They may have slapped me. They may have disgraced me. They may have spit on me. They may have dragged me through the mud. They may have embarrassed me. They may have stripped me, scorned me. They may have whipped me. They may have put me in the back or pushed me to the front. They may have taken away my rights. They may have entrapped me, imprisoned me, right? Whatever it was that happened to me does not determine my worth or my value. I am still important. And whose job is it to remind me of that? It's my job to remind myself I'm important, to validate myself. So whenever we go through something that's traumatic, something that's a boundary crosser, something that violates the values, something that violates the boundary, what are you supposed to do? Remind yourself, I'm still important though. I'm still important, right? No matter what it was they did, whatever they took away, you just remind yourself right away, I'm still valid. I'm still important. I'm still me. I'm still everything I was before. I still have my potential. My potential has not been taken away. As long as I'm alive, I still have my potential. And that's the most valuable thing I have. I'm important. I'm a valid member of this race, of this human race. How's that going to stop us from having flashbacks and nightmares? Well, you see, as we're using VIP to initially process things immediately in the moment so that it minimizes the trauma, what we're building is a strong narcissistic defense. This is what many of us lack as a result of splitting to becoming this empath. We heal by picking the ego back up. And this tool will allow you to pick your ego back up. I'm victorious no matter what. What's my victory story? I'm important still. I'm still important despite what happened to me. The last one is P for powerful, right? So you must process in the moment when you go through a loss, when you experience a setback, you must process that you are still powerful. And so you have to ask yourself, okay, well, what do I still have the power to do? That's the only correct question, not what can't I do? Well, there's an unlimited list of what we cannot do at all times, every day. The question is, what can I still do? It's okay because I still can what? Take action, do this, go here, go there, move here, make these moves, build this business, build this company. It doesn't have to be related. It just has to be your capability. It has to be within your reach, it has to be within your power. Because then you're reminding yourself of you, your capability, and we are designed to feel powerful. We are designed as powerful beings in the image of God. The elements that are in you are the same elements that are inside of stars, inside of the sun. You are a being of power, of immense power. So remind yourself, whenever you go through something that's violating, how's this going to work into my victory story? Why am I still important? And what do I still have the power to do? Put the mind there. As a result of not having powerlessness, you're not living in anxiety. When you're not living in anxiety, you will have less nightmares. Why is that? Well, dreams are a huge mystery to mankind and to scientists today. But I have a theory that dreams work in the subconscious on an inverse of what happens while we're awake. So normally your conscious mind is supposed to lead you during your waking hours, and you're observing things in your conscious reality, and then your subconscious mind is getting the information. What happens is when you're asleep is your conscious mind is basically offline and becomes subservient to your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind does not have eyes, it doesn't have ears. So what does it see? What does it hear? Well, it only can work off of memories. So it builds dreams and imagination. So it builds dreams based on memories and imagination. The dreams are stories that engage the conscious mind. And how does it determine what stories to give you? How does your subconscious mind determine what stories to give you at night while you're sleeping? Well, I believe that the subconscious mind determines what stories to give you based on your emotional state, based on your chemical state, in a general sense. There's something happening in the body in terms of what's being regulated or what's flowing or what's the body's usually producing in terms of the hormones and the chemicals or what the body needs. It will give you dreams and stories to fit the actual chemicals and the emotions, which is counterintuitive because normally we think the story is what's making us afraid, but I am telling you it's the afraid that's making the story. It's the fear that you're walking around with that creates the nightmare. That is why when you are in low anxiety, and when you are healed, you don't have nightmares. And when you are high anxiety, and when you are frightened, you are having more nightmares. And you will notice when things are happy in your life, you're having more happy dreams. And when things are sad in your life, you're having more sad dreams. And when you're feeling out of control in your life, you're having more out of control dreams because the dream state is just mimicking the emotional state of the body. It's being, so the story that's being told in the nightmare is being dictated by the physical sensations of the chemicals and the hormones of the body. It's going by what's happening in the physical body, what's happening in the system. So we diminish the nightmares by diminishing the anxiety. And we've got plenty of tools to do just that. So before you go to bed at night, if you suffer from insomnia or you have nightmares, use the JOT method. You have a full training of the JOT method on YouTube. Type in Roman Zanoni, J-O-T. And you will get a training on how to process your anxiety on a piece of paper. It'll immediately lower your anxiety, so you'll go to sleep in a low anxiety state. Then you will not have nightmares. You can even text me, tell me all about how it worked or how it didn't work, but it will work for you. So hopefully these tools have been helpful to you and enlightening. We want Mindset Mondays to help you to see how you can get beyond just surviving and actually start reaching your potential in life. And so hopefully today's talk did just that. Of course, this is just one piece of our overall healing program. If you are trying to heal with me, this is what you need to be doing. Every week, you need 30 minutes exercise, 30 minutes meditation, 30 minutes edification, which is watching one of my videos on YouTube. Then you need to be in the trauma healing course. That can count as your edification. That's online. You can find that on the website. You should also be at our weekly meetings. We have them every Monday, every Wednesday. Why do you have to come to so many meetings if you're healing? Because we are retraining your brain. We have to create new neural pathways and let the old ones die. The people who come to all the meetings and who do a session with a therapist, and they're in the course, and they're doing their edification and their meditation every day and their exercise every day, they heal. How often? Every time. They heal. They always get better. Why? Because we have to change the brain, right? The trauma changed it one way. We got to unchange it. How long does it take? Not years, months, weeks of work, but you got to be in it. You got to be in it, right? Come to the retreats. It works, but you got to be in it. If you're consistent, be at all the meetings, Monday, Wednesday, session with me or Marissa or Lo, right? Be on top of it. And what will happen? Your brain will change. And as a result, you will come out of the traumatized state, and then you can join me and you can be a coach and you can help us to help more people. Thanks for giving me your time tonight. Have a great one.